Hello everyone and welcome to Zach's Garage. Today you join me on a very special day at Supervettura in Sunningdale, where we have full access to this, the all new Koenigsegg Jesko. So let me show you around it and show you all the features that most people don't know about. Let's take a seat inside the car and let me show you all throughout, well, all of the cool controls. So let's hop in using the very fancy key and let's open the door and step in. So now we're inside the car. Let's first of all have a look at the infotainment screen. Now the first screen is this, it's the photo or the visual of the Koenigsegg Jesko. What's quite cool is Koenigsegg have said that depending on your spec, they will make that your spec, so that's very cool. So moving across, you can see tyre pressures. Now that is, this isn't set at the moment because obviously this is the prototype car. Now if we go into controls, this will open up all of the controls. So for instance, if I press this door button here, as you can see when I press it, it closes the door. Very swish. But now if we go back onto there, you have the rear bonnet, front bonnet, your door, and then for here you can control the seat heating, which I think is quite cool. And then you've got the mirror adjusters, so you can change the mirror, you can also fold it in, and vice versa, also seat heat. Now the seats are a manual adjusting seat, but if I press this, you can see the front all opens up. It's basically a transformer. You can automatically, whenever you want, switch on the camera. It is rear view and front view, but the front view camera isn't on this one at the moment. So you can see it's sort of like a fisheye lens. I think they'll make that a little bit clearer fairly soon, because I have seen the Agera one and that's very, very clear indeed. Now let's just shut that up again. And if we go into modes, so here you can see wet, snow, normal and racetrack. Now normal mode keeps it a little bit higher off the ground, keeps the suspension fairly soft, and so if we put it into normal mode now, you'll probably hear a lot of whining. There is all of the whining. You can also switch traction control on and off. You have to hold it down for a period of time. So something quite cool there. The next one, exterior lighting. So you can have the side lights on, you can switch them off. So yeah, quite cool there. This is also very smart indeed. If we go red, put it all the way to red, and in fact actually if we put all of them, if we put all of the top, the back, now as you can see the lights up here are red, the lights in the footwell are red, and the very long, almost Chiron line is also red, but if I move this along, you can see it changes colour. So basically you can make your own disco in your Jesko. That's a cool combination. Now, what else is there to go through? So, setup. This is how to connect your phone if you want to play music. That's Bluetooth. Wi-Fi, the car will be putting out its own Wi-Fi under 5G when that eventually starts coming out a bit more. General, smart sensor brightness. That's all of these bits. The haptic controls, which we will get onto in a second. Next one, the units, which is very cool. You can do kilometers an hour, or you can press miles and it'll automatically change everything into miles per hour and the distance in terms of the mileage as well. Temperature, you can change from degrees C to Fahrenheit. Pressure, bar to PSI, very cool. Time format, 12 to 24 hours. So fairly simple stuff there, but nonetheless very interesting. The next one, this you will never need. This is for the software people, so they can see the versions of it, and all the bits that I just don't understand. If we go into media, you can see the volume. You can adjust the volume by doing that, and also by connecting your phone. You'll notice that you can always always switch on to the camera. Now, if you ever want to access obviously the more obvious controls, for instance the door, you just press that and you can easily see that's the window controls and that's the door control there as well. Now, whilst we are on the door controls, let me show you something quite cool. So, as you will notice, there is just a shield here, and it's a very nice, very clean-cut shield, but there is no door handle, and the reason for that is there is a tiny, tiny little button just here. So if I press it, the door automatically opens. So now this is the prototype steering wheel. This plastic here, this will be in carbon fibre. This has full haptic controls on both sides. Obviously this is still the prototype car, so there are still bits going on here. But you can see, if I move this up and down, you can see just there, the volume going up and down, and it actually feels like a rollerball there, because it vibrates and you can hear it. Something very clever. Play and stop, mute, forward and backwards. And you also have the normal controls indicator on both sides. Now, you just heard that. That is the wheel sensor, because this car isn't all connected as such. So let me run through what this is. So this is Koenigsegg's new design. It's very clever indeed. So what it does, it moves with the steering wheel. Now I can only move the steering wheel a little bit, but when I move it, you will see the center part moves depending, and it will also, it's pretty responsive. Now obviously you can see it's a little bit jaded here. This is still the prototype version, and when everything's switched on, it'll probably still have a few different bits on it as well, but it's actually quite a clever design. Now, I know what you guys are thinking, oh, what happens if you've got the steering wheel completely upside down? Well, yes, okay, you'll have the steering wheel upside down, it'll be down here, but if you've got all the way down, then you're probably not going that fast because you've got almost full lock on, so bit silly. This, but definitely is very, very helpful and very clever actually. Now, moving further back, you also have the analog G-force meter, which I think is very cool. It's something that I spoke to Christian about in Geneva. It's something that he wanted on the car because it reminisced about what Koenigsegg were all about, being hardcore, and obviously before there was loads of technology, it really was just the manual gearbox and just an engine, so pretty crazy stuff there. All works as well, so you can see what G's you're fetching as well, so quite cool. Now let's talk about the gearbox for a second. So it's got something called the U-Pod system, the ultimate power on demand. Now that is cool in itself, who cares what it does, but I will tell you anyway. So as you guys know, this is a 9-speed gearbox with 7 clutches. That is ludicrous. So you know how you hear people like Ferrari talking, oh, we've got a twin plate clutch or a triple plate clutch, you know, and some of these race cars and their miniature. This has 7. 7, that means that's unheard of. Now the reason for that is as follows. So if we look down here, at the moment that is sitting in the neutral position. So if you want drive, you can pull it down and that would be then in drive. If you want it in reverse, you push it forward and that would be in reverse. But if you want it in triptonic or in paddles, you put it over and then you have up and down. But that's not it. See, now if you're going along at 70 mile an hour in 9th gear, for instance, and you go, you know what, I want to teach this Toyota Prius a lesson, you push it all the way down. As you guys can see, there's another bit down. What that does is it selects the optimum gear, the most powerful gear there is, whatever that may be at that speed and at that revs, so that you don't have the brah, 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 you know, shifting down gears. It's just there, go. And it's instant. So there's aggressive acceleration, and then there's a 9-speed 7-plate clutch gearbox that can instantly put you in whatever gear you want. So that is pretty mad. Now you'll notice just down here where it says Jesko, 1 of 125. That is how many cars are being made. 125 Koenigsegg Jeskos are being made. You've also got analog window controls here, which you can pull up. And you can push down at the same time. These are actually touch sensitive, so which is quite cool. That's not active at the moment. Engine start, stop, and the hazards. This is all open to change as mentioned because it is a prototype car. So following back onto here, you have the heated seats, you have recirculation on, recirculation off, You also have the temperature controls, cabin air heating, air conditioning, fan, and windshield heating. So actually it's very, very clever indeed. So yeah, that is the center console. And I think that is most of the stuff. Obviously the speakers here are now sound by Koenigsegg. Even Koenigsegg make their own audio. As you guys have probably seen in the Agera, there is just holes. Now they've actually made some sort of speaker covers, which I think look really cool. But then who really cares about audio when you've got a whopping great big V8 at the back of it, which has got just endless power. So cool. Just here you've got the magnetic key holder, which you can see if I press it here, automatically attracts that there. And you can have your key in matching dashboard color, so the little pouch that's here you can have in any color you wish. The air conditioning controls, for instance, these are little knobs with the Koenigsegg emblem on, which you can move around to position the air. You can push it to switch it on and push it to switch it off as well, which is very clever indeed. Are the Koenigsegg bucket seats. These are the sort of racing-esque seats. They feature the 4-point harnesses, so you have one here, actually no, sorry, 3-point harness. Really good when you're on the track. Obviously this is the track pack setup. There's more to come on that fairly soon. And very clever, because I don't know if any of you guys have ever been in a race car with the sort of the third big chunky piece, but this actually pops in to the center of the car, and you can press it in to click it in so it doesn't flap about. Now storage space is quite important, but what is not important is in a Koenigsegg, because if you're taking this on a holiday, you have your Rolls-Royce Phantom following behind you, but if you necessarily need to store a pencil or a pen in here, then you will probably have, as I said, this is the prototype car, you'll probably have some netting behind here, probably a pouch down the side here, and possibly a glove box in here somewhere. But as mentioned, this is still a prototype car, so we don't really know, but this is as much information as I can give you at the moment. Now let's make our way from the front all the way to the back, and let's talk about the aerodynamics of the car. So the front splitter, as you can tell, it is huge. Koenigsegg have called it the elongated front splitter. It's not an option, it's just how the car is. But if you have a look at it, it goes on for centuries, it's massive. We also have the winglets here, which is very cool. They obviously provide more downforce. This is the track pack that I think people are calling it at the moment. There will be an official Koenigsegg term, but I can't divulge too much at the moment. Then we also have this rather cool fin here. Now, lots of people have been wondering, what is the point of this? Is this just aesthetic? No. This is actually, believe it or not, the most economical way of feeding air directly into the turbocharger, but call it a supercharger. Now the turbocharger, the reason why they've done that is so they can have a smaller turbo. Smaller turbo means less weight, typical Christian von Koenigsegg. Anything to make less weight on the car. Now, so what that does, that directs air directly into here, straight into the turbochargers. Something very interesting there, and when the door's up, obviously it's not all connected, but you can still see a little bit of air there. You also have the lower sill winglet there, that gives it more downforce. Most of this stuff is downforce, but actually the amount of active aerodynamics is minimal, apart from this. So let me present to you the biggest active rear wing on any production car. This thing is crazy. What I think is really cool, it took me a long time to work out why I thought it looked a little bit different to most big wings, is the fact that it's shaped backwards. Really peculiar. But as after speaking to Christian at Geneva about it, he said it was the optimal way of providing as much downforce as possible. Now this is an active air brake. When you slam on the anchors, this thing is going to pop up and stop you instantly. It also adjusts depending on speed, so you can see these fluttering around, very similar to on the RSs, and just a very cool feature. One thing I can divulge is the pack that is following the Koenigsegg Jesko will not have the big wing. Some interesting information there. But let me quickly show you this wing moving. Now I know what you're thinking, pretty crazy, right? If we look further down, you have this really large rear diffuser, also quite low, probably quite expensive if you break it. You also have this quite cool Jesko logo and a rather cool Akrapovic, or so many people have different names for it. Call it whatever you want. Very nice exhaust system indeed. But on that moment, let's talk about some aesthetics. Now this car, as you can see, it's taken its steps from its older brother, Agera. I think if you took away the front splitter and the big wing, you'd look at it and go, oh, I can see a bit more of Agera. But also you can see Agera, and you can also see a bit of one-to-one, and that's what this car is all about. It's taken all the best bits from Koenigsegg's history, mashed it into one, and made this something truly special. For example, the air core wheels. These wheels are the lightest carbon fibre wheels Koenigsegg have ever made, but they're also the strongest. Now that's awesome. Now whether you like the styling or not, the fact that you can pick these wheels up with literally one finger is next level. I wish we had a wheel here that I could actually show you how light it truly is, because believe me, it's incredible. Moving further back, obviously the whole car is fully autonomous, which we'll get to in a second. The wing mirrors, there isn't a button for them, it's just a sensor. So when you press the sensor inside, they fold in automatically. Something that actually is a big improvement from the Agera, take it from me, because these wing mirrors got quite wobbly. But actually, when you fold them in, they were nice and tight. So they fixed that with these and put it in the full autonomous auto skin. This, as mentioned before, for the turbo, that fin there is purely to feed air into the turbo. Yes, okay, it looks stunning and it's very aesthetic, but it is a massive, has a massive purpose to fuel the car with air. Incredible. Now these Jesko badges, there's a near and far between, but they're positioned just in the right place to remind you about what the car is. If we go further back, you've got 251, and that is the chassis number of the car. That is the chassis number, in fact, of all of the Koenigseggs so far. Something very cool there. And now, if we get to the back, I'll let my cameraman flip angles. So the rear of the car, you can sort of see the Agera sort of headlights. Although what I find very cool is, with the indicator being here, which you'll see now, when the bonnet is up, which I'll show you in a second, the car actually, the headlights just sit very nicely. So something quite cool there. The exhaust tip is actually a bit higher up than usual. I don't know if you've seen, well, you've definitely seen, if you check out my other videos, the Ageras, the exhausts are usually a lot further down. So it gives it a bit more of a high up stance, whilst the diffuser's quite low. So lots of small details that Koenigsegg have got very right. For instance, the stripe, the grey stripe, goes all the way down and is split by this little chrome piece just down in the middle. Very cool. And another design aspect, the fact that you can see just advertised in the middle, Koenigsegg triplex suspension. Now, I think it's probably about time we talked about what's under here. So without further ado, let me open this up. So, here's the key. There's the engine. The V8, it's a 5-litre V8, same as you found in the Agera RS. Apart from this is a flat plane crank V8, which means it can rev a lot higher, up to 8,000 RPM. Now what that also means is there's a higher output, 1,600 brake horsepower. Now a lot of people I've spoken to go, oh it's a lot, and they're comparing their Ageras to the Ageras and the one-to-ones. People forget how much of a serious figure that is. If you just think 1,600 brake horsepower, that's just crazy. And not only that, 1,500 Newton meters of torque. I mean, that is just next level stuff. But it is also turbocharged, as mentioned with the side air intake bits. But let's focus on two things that I find very interesting about this car as well: the gearbox and the suspension. Let's talk about the light speed transmission, or the LST. So that is actually a term used by Koenigsegg to describe their 9-speed 7 clutch gearbox. Now, I know you're probably thinking that's absolutely crazy, and there's a reason for it. So, Koenigsegg, or Christian himself, wanted to come up with an idea that actually works, which is very incredible. So what it is that they're using this ultimate power on demand, which is where you can actually select a gear from the stick, which is inside. So if you want, for instance, I don't know, you're doing 70 mile an hour on the motorway and you go, right, I want to go a lot harder here, you can press it all the way down and it will instantly find the exact gear to give you optimal power, to give you as much oomph, if you will, as possible. So yeah, fair play to Koenigsegg. So the suspension, it has the triplex suspension set up, which means it has 3 dampers, one here, and one here. Now what this does, this top damper actually combats squatting, so it gives it a bit more rigidity, but for the first time it's also in the front of the car. Now if we head to the front of the car for a second, if you open the bonnet, you can actually see where it is. With the press of a button, opens up the front of the car, and as you can see just in there, the triplex suspension. Now what you also will notice is the fact that this big old air scoop here, what that means is for the first time you can, well not for the first time, it was in the one-to-one, but you cannot store the roof in the front of this car. So if you want a Sunday drive and you want the roof off, A, there's screws for it instead of latches, and B, you have to leave it at home. So sorry about that. Okay, so I hope I've given you a really good insight into this amazing car. Now I know you're probably wondering, how much is it? Well, in today's currency, it's £3.7 million. Now I know you're thinking, oh my God, that's crazy money. But if you think about the alternative hypercars, well, you find one more exciting than this. And to prove it to you, well, I'll sign off now and let the car do the talking. So as always, thank you so much. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you really soon. Cheers.